Hello, students. Welcome back. This is Dr. Z. We are moving into chapter 19, Revolutions in Politics. This is going to be section 1 of 6 because this is the French Revolution. There's a lot to talk about in this chapter. And we're going to touch on the American and Haitian revolutions for just a moment. And I just want to explain this picture. So this is just to show you how important the French Revolution is. The pedestal that you see on the right used to have a statue of Louis XIV's grandfather. Okay. So, sorry, Louis XVI's grandfather, Louis XV. All right. So he's the one who came right after the Sun King. Here we see Louis XVI being executed. So he's literally getting executed staring at a pedestal where the toppled over statue of his grandfather was, right? Just to give like a sense of seriousness to this whole situation that we're about to embark on. This is going to be a pretty complicated, but also really interesting chapter. Some notes about this chapter. Please watch videos about the French Revolution. Please read your textbook. Many students are a little reluctant to read their textbooks. For this chapter in particular, your book is going to be able to give you a really good, clear, concise summary of the revolution. That is not easily found elsewhere on the internet. There is so much information online about the French Revolution. It can be mind-boggling. In fact, in most American colleges and universities, you can take a history course, an elective, that's a semester elective, on the Enlightenment and French Revolution. I used to TA for that course at Hunter College. So there's so much to this that it's easy to get bogged down in all of the details. So you do want to try to be as concise as possible in understanding this very, very important moment in European history. Lastly, make a timeline. I think you would be best served. Your textbook has a number of good timelines, but you would probably be well served if you made a timeline so that you could see the events in chronological order as they unfold. Now, before we get started, I want to just talk to us about what is a revolution, right? So there are 5 things that historians say you need to have in order for a revolution to happen. So one is that everyone has to be upset. So the rich people, the poor people, the nobility, the clergy, the aristocracy, the commoners, everyone has to have some sort of beef with the government. Okay, that generally, if it's only one faction that's upset, generally there won't be a revolution. You also need incompetent leadership. That tends to be a real main ingredient for revolution. Likewise with a financial crisis, usually marked by an increase in the cost of everyday products and food, bread, things like that. During a revolution, the military will generally side with the revolutionaries. There's multiple militaries in almost any revolution, but when the military sides with the revolutionaries and supports the revolutionaries, or the revolutionaries are able to form their own military easily, that is a key ingredient to a revolution. And likewise, there have to be new ideas, a new political culture, some wave of cultural political change coming. Okay, so just to give us a sense of what exactly that means. The American Revolution is part of this chapter. Y'all studied it in your APUSH classes or your American history classes. For AP Euro, you need to understand that the American Revolution, 1776, is a cause of the French Revolution. The French financially supported the American Revolution. The French General Lafayette, who I'm pretty sure is in this picture here, fought in the American Revolution, learned a lot about revolutions, and then came back to France to lead the French Revolution. He's the one who leads the Women's March as well in the French Revolution, which we'll talk about. The other thing to understand is that the American Revolution was not democratic because of its broad support across classes. Was democratic because it had broad support across classes. The French Revolution, even though multiple classes of people are upset in the French Revolution, yes, commoners are upset. The very wealthy commoners, the bourgeoisie, they are upset. They're the most upset. But they're the ones really driving the revolution. So most historians would say that the French Revolution was not a democratic revolution at all. It is a revolution in which the king gets overturned. There's, a change of government a few times, but it is not a democratic. They're not fighting for democracy quite yet. And the other thing is General Lafayette, and I mentioned him as well. With the Haitian Revolution, this is also on your outline for AP Euro. You want to think of the Haitian Revolution as coming after the French Revolution, okay? Saint-Domingue, later named Haiti, was a French colony, okay? And the French were profiting from their colony through just really horrific practices with their enslaved workers. So while the French Revolution raged on, enslaved people in Haiti rose up, demanded their rights. They defeated, and this is just just an amazing, read the whole textbook about the Haitian Revolution. There's like 2 or 3 pages in it. And go ahead and look at some other resources online as well. It's a fantastic story. They defeat the British, the Spanish, and the French under Napoleon. And they are the only nation in history to claim its freedom through a revolt of enslaved people. Not to say they are the only enslaved people who revolted, but those revolts resulted in Haiti gaining its freedom, which is just a really fantastic story. There's a wonderful character, Toussaint Louverture, and you just go and read about it. There was I think it was a DBQ or an LAQ a number of years ago that surprised a lot of folks in AP Euro about this as well. Okay, so thinking about causes of the French Revolution, we start with a really bad monarch. That's Louis XV is the first one, okay? So he's the grandfather of Louis XVI, who is the main monarch during the revolution, but we really have to start with Louis XV. He became a king at 5 years old, all right? He was not very good with his finances. He, basically because he was such a bad absolutist, right? People started really getting disenchanted with absolute monarchy because of him, okay? Jerome Bloom calls him a perpetual adolescent called to do a man's job. It's pretty harsh words. He lost a lot of wars. He had endless clashes with his court and the parliament. There were so many religious issues going on. There was not a lot of peace, okay? And so when his grandson, Louis XVI, succeeds him, he, really sort of leaves France in a bad state. Louis XV is also famous for having a romantic scandal with Madame de Pompadour. So she was a bourgeois lady who was not noble, okay? And so he had an extramarital affair with her, and this would have been okay if she had been noble, but she was considered a commoner. But as a commoner and as a bourgeois lady, and well-dressed, as you can see in that painting, she was beautiful, educated, cultured, intelligent. She was in love with the king. She was really smart. She supported Diderot's encyclopedia against attacks by the church. So she was a liberal Enlightenment thinker. Okay. And she lived in an apartment above the king's office and bedroom at Versailles. And the king loved her style of entertainment, and sort of her fun ways. This was very different than normal Versailles court life. So she was kind of seen as a breath of fresh air to the king. She's a really fantastic and interesting character in history. After she died, he had a series of other affairs, of course, that contributed to his poor reputation. But him having an affair with a not noble person was, one of the big scandals of the time. So Louis XV, what a disappointment, right? And then Louis XVI comes in and inherits a France that is just riddled with national debt. So the American Revolution, there's poor harvests, there's the bourgeoisie is taxed without a say in the government. We already saw issues in general with the nobles having that, with the Fronde, but now the bourgeois are like, hey, we have a lot of money and we're really financially supporting the government, and we don't really have a say because we're commoners in this third estate. I'll talk about what that means in a moment. Now, one of the things to think about, so basically the economy is the big problem and the big cause of the French Revolution. I have to highlight here things that are not causes, okay? Yeah, people saw Louis XV as a disappointment and his grandson was a little lackluster as a king, but people in general are not overly upset about the king. They're not looking to overthrow the king in 1789, okay? They are perfectly okay with keeping the king, okay? People did not want to get rid of the monarchy. They did not want to overthrow the king. Please put that out of your head. Almost every year, students write this in an essay, and it's very disappointing to me. So I'm being really clear here. Causes of the French Revolution were economic. All right, even though there were two fairly disappointing monarchs on the throne, the very famous Marie Antoinette and, of course, Louis XVI, both very young monarchs. They don't have a lot of experience, and she's a foreigner. She comes from Vienna. She's a Habsburg, an Austrian. Okay. The French Revolution begins, some would argue, with the king calling the Estates General, because there's this problem with the economy, right? And he says, oh, let me call this body of advisors that hasn't been called in over 100 years to come and help me figure out this taxation and finance issue. And all of those people in the Estates General coming to advise the king write what are called cahiers de doléances. They bring these letters of grievance. And in these letters, we see things like, if the king only knew that bread was so expensive, if the king only knew about these problems. These letters are not arguing that the king should go away. So that's the biggest piece of evidence for us to understand that while there was disappointment in the monarchy, people weren't looking to overthrow the monarchy. Now, Marie Antoinette, we need to pause and talk about her for just a moment here. Okay. This is her it's a very big and luxurious and beautiful, but this is her cottage built on the grounds of Versailles. Okay. One historian, I remember in graduate school, basically claimed that Marie Antoinette was the first, what's the word I'm looking for? Hipster, right? Because she, in her little cottage, right, she is basically playing peasant. She's a grown woman who's playing dress up. She has a lover who lives in the cottage with her. They wear commoner clothing. They throw little commoner parties. There's farm animals around. It's very charming and beautiful. But this is the Queen of France doing this. Right. And you can imagine people got wind of this and were like, oh, why are you playing commoner? Why are you, dressing up and cosplaying as a poor person? So we'll stop here. And when we come back, we will talk a bit about the very beginning of the French Revolution, how it begins and what exactly happens with that Estates General and who they were. All right. See you then.